come together. I know we set the tone with communion of a lot of chattering, which was very fun, but now it's time to bring it in a little bit. Carolyn tells me she's ready for me to pray, so let's do it. If you would join me in a moment of prayer. Gracious and loving God, be with us in this time and in this place. Remind us of who we follow. Keep our eye on who we hope to be as we continue to serve you in this place. Give us a tone of care, of Christian love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. I have given a number of these town halls, and somehow this one I am the most nervous for. There's a lot of passion on a lot of sides, and people are very vocal about their passion, and I appreciate the passion, but I will remind you that we were all human beings. And when you say unkind things, it hurts. So I'm just going to start there. So, welcome to the town hall prior to the Fraser vote, which will be next week. For those of you on live stream, you are welcome to text Bonnie Strand, and that is her phone number that is showing right now, 303-903-0768. So again, if you are not physically present, you are welcome to text Bonnie Strand, and when we get to the question section, she will read them out loud so we can answer them. All right. This is a reminder of who we are and what we do and why we are here. And the building, actually, not really part of it. We are building a dynamic and sacred Christian community whose purpose is to transform ourselves, invite others, and with God's help, serve the world around us. That is who we are as a community. So now I'm going to run through a bunch of slides, which if you have attended one of these town halls, you will have seen a lot of this. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, but I just sort of remind people who may not have been at one of these town halls or you forgot or whatever. So what's happened so far? The Building Futures Committee met in 22-23 to determine what our building maintenance needs might be going forward. And they identified over $1 million in upcoming capital expenses, not including the elevator or sprinklers. And costs have increased significantly, building costs, over the past couple of years. In 2022, Fraser formally approached Mountain View about the possibility of purchasing part of our land. Mountain View elected a building committee at a charge conference, and that group met through August of 2023. A different version of the committee reformed in 2024 and has been meeting with Fraser about every other week since then. In January of this year, we did some visioning sessions. I can't remember at this point, 5 or 6 or 8 of them, where you all came together and answered a bunch of questions about who Mountain View is and what you value, what's important, what's not important, what we do well, what we don't do well. So at the top of the list, our music is amazing, which for sure it is. We value outreach and missions. Connections and relationships are of vital importance, as we surely saw during communion this morning. That was very fun to watch. And we want to support children and families, plus older people. We also found that we love the sanctuary exactly as it is. We don't want to change it, and we don't want to leave it. The majority of people were willing to shrink our footprint. If we don't sell to Fraser, we want to create low-income housing. We'd like to improve our energy efficiency and the accessibility around the building. Our contributions and rental income are not currently raising enough money to fund our ministry and mission. A pre-application to vacate Ponca Place was submitted to the City of Boulder. Technically, Fraser did it, but it turns out that any human can submit an application to vacate a street in the City of Boulder, which is just bizarre to me. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that Fraser submitted it. If it is approved, it means that Fraser would own half of Ponca and we would own the other half. In the short term, it will continue to function exactly as it does right now. And the board signed a memo of understanding with Fraser in 2024, March of 24, sorry, saying that we would work toward an agreement together that would be mutually beneficial. Then, the Green Team has been doing extensive research on improving our future energy efficiency, adding insulation to the sanctuary roof, improving the efficiency of our heating and cooling systems. And the most efficient heating cooling system going forward would be geothermal. At least that is how it appears right now. It would be nearly zero cost to operate, assuming that we insulate the sanctuary roof. Grants make the net cost competitive, and we can explore incorporating that into the rebuild plans. I would like to say we're going to do more than explore. I would like to achieve that, but I can't promise it because I don't know where we're going. Anyway, the building committee hosted, after the last town hall, the building committee hosted 13 listening sessions attended by about 50 total parishioners. And Bonnie Strand, bless her lovely soul, produced a very long document with every question and every answer to the questions that we heard during those listening sessions. And then the building committee, which is Bonnie Strand, Gary Schmitz, me, Art Saltarelli, and Desiree Williams. That's everybody, right? And Pastor Stephanie was in the meetings as well. Negotiated the purchase and sale agreement together with the conference attorney. So what's our conference name? Mountain Sky has a conference attorney that they pay, and he has been helping us negotiate this contract and writing the language and whatnot. Sort of concurrently with all of this, the board appointed an alternative options committee that was created to consider options other than Fraser that could update and modernize our building to minimize future capital expenses and generate enough revenue that we could support our ministries into the future. So they looked at a lot of stuff, and I'm going to step to the side momentarily before I come back to the alternative options. So there were 3 basic options, and there are variations of this, but these were the basic options that we've presented a couple times so far. We could continue as we have been and hope for the best. We could do a major capital campaign in which we raise money to pay for what we anticipate future expenses will be, and an endowment to support our future ministries. And the third option then is that we could sell all or part of our property, modernize what's left and go totally green, and we would have money in the bank to fund our future ministries. So those were some options that we have presented that the alternative committee was working alongside. So options that they researched and found to be non-viable were restarting the preschool, long-term lease, and I will come back to that in a moment, long-term lease of a large portion of the building to some other nonprofit, finding an alternate buyer for a portion of the property, and doing nothing is really not a responsible option. So while we gave that as one of the possible options, it's not really feasible. So at the last town hall, Stephen Williams asked, what would it cost to restart the preschool? Very fair question. And so a lot of research was done. Elizabeth and Stephen, I think, spearheaded the effort with, Elizabeth and Stephen and Bonnie worked on it. And what they learned is that it's about $500,000 in startup costs between refurbishing part of the building and having enough operating capital to get it off the ground. And in return, it would generate some revenue that we need, but it would not in itself build reserves to cover our future capital expenses. They also found that cutting the budget to fund reserves would not meet our future needs in the right time frame, and it would harm our current ministries. So then they also considered doing a major capital campaign, which is a possibility, but it's unclear whether the congregation could raise enough to cover all of our needs. And at this point in time, no other option would generate enough revenue plus capital as this Fraser deal. So that's what the Alternative Options Committee found. All right, so working on returning to the Fraser deal, because that is what we had agreed to work toward in March, is that it allows us to stay put. We don't have to move. We can keep our beautiful sanctuary, keep our beautiful organ, keep everything as we have come to love on Sunday mornings. It would allow us to modernize our building. It will decrease our total footprint, and it will optimize the remaining space to support our ministries of music, children and families, outreach and mission, and fellowship amongst each other. It would also, in this modernization process, allow us to maximize our energy efficiency, improve the building accessibility, and improve building safety, which was not really part of our visioning sessions, but it is part of being a responsible steward. And it would put money in the bank to support our future ministries. Now, what are some ministry benefits? Because as I said at the beginning, that's who we actually are. It's not about the building, it's about who we are and what we do. And so by going through this project, we'll have a right-sized building for our congregation and ministry into the future. We have the congregation that we have right now. We obviously want to grow. We want more people in here, and this does allow for that. We can absolutely increase the number of bodies in here with the footprint that we're discussing. It would give us purpose-built spaces, which is kind of jargony, but basically it means that we would have spaces that are designed for what we want to do in this church, and furthermore, they would be flexible spaces to allow us to use them for multiple purposes. If you all have been in this building during the week, there's a ton of empty space. But we also have a lot of people at certain times, and there would be flexibility built in that we could accommodate all of that. And finally, the new building or the rebuilt building would be ministry space that is inviting and meets current code. That's the thing. We have all become very accustomed to this building and its weird pipes and its funny paint and wonky this and weirdo that. But to a new person walking into the building, that's not always the most inviting thing. So this would give us a modern, attractive building for folks. Okay, so as part of this process, we went through looking at the space usage in this building. So staff and committee chairs determined their space needs in 2023, and they updated in 2024. We went through the church calendar for like 4 months at the beginning of this year, I think January through February, and tracked every single thing that happened in this building as though it were happening in a single week, and could we accommodate that? Then we worked with an architect to see, can we fit all the things that we do into the footprint with the south end of the building removed? And yes, we can. But if we build, even better, if we did a small addition, we would have more flexibility and really improve the flow. So the thing I want to say at this juncture is that the drawings you have all seen, the drawings that are sitting in the narthex, those are suggestions. Those are concepts. Those are not cast in stone. And so I want you to know that we are not voting on those designs. We're not there yet. That's not what this vote is about. So going forward, if the vote is affirmative, next week's vote, then we form a new building committee and appoint a project manager to be approved at the regular November charge conference that's coming up. We would work from the existing drawings, but incorporating the feasible changes that we heard in the listening sessions. Because there were some things that the building committee thought was cool, and the rest of you said, "Are you crazy? We don't want that in our building." Okay, fine. I got no issue with that. But we will incorporate the changes and the feedback that we heard to come up with a design that will do the best that we can for this congregation. And we currently have high-level contractor bids based on those drawings that range from $4 to $6 million. And that would get us what we need. Now, talking money, because to some extent that's what this is about. Selling more land means we get more money. Even if we don't own the land, and this is the advantage of working with Fraser versus pretty much anyone else, we can still use the land. For example, play space and parking. And that's part of the sale that's written into the contract. And by vacating, selling, and sharing Ponca Place with maximized parking, we have a little bit more land that we can sell. So again, yes, we are looking at selling a lot of land, but we can still use portions of it. That's part of the contract we're working on. So where we are right this very moment is that Mountain View we have provided sales documents with details to Fraser, and I'll walk through what all those are in just a minute. Fraser has said that they accept these terms in principle. They are going to meet tomorrow to discuss formally all the pieces of the contract. And I refer to it as a contract or a sale. Technically, there are 3 different pieces, but you don't need to really know that. And then we will confirm final details before the vote. So that is where we are right this moment. So this is what everyone has been wanting to know. The details of the sale. We are looking at selling approximately 70% of our land for $6,439,418,000. No, not thousand. 6 million. Anyway, you can read the number. I can't speak it. And then, assuming that Ponca gets vacated, we would sell our half to Fraser for $1,149,896. And then there is a right of first refusal on the remaining 30% of the land, for which we would get paid $300,000. And in a perfect world, we would get it all up front, but that's still a negotiating point. For a grand total of $7.899 million. That is what we would get for the land that we are selling. All right? Now, beyond that, we are looking to receive that $300,000 within the 10 days of signing the contract, and we get to keep that money no matter what. So if you all have ever sold a house, you know about earnest money, right? You put money down, but the seller can't actually use the earnest money, right? It just sits in an escrow account, and if the deal goes through, then it's part of that. This is not that. This $300,000 is ours to keep forever and ever, amen. And then, within 720 days of signing the contract, with a possible extension of another 180 days, assuming the City of Boulder approves the project, we receive the rest of the money. So there are some ifs in this thing. One is that the city needs to vacate Ponca. If they don't vacate Ponca, the deal doesn't work. And we need to get permission from the city to be able to build what Fraser wants to build. So it's not guaranteed, but Fraser kind of knows what they're doing. So I'm pretty darn hopeful that they will achieve what they are going for. So, more details, and this gets much more into nitty-gritty, but these are things that they have promised us verbally, and we wanted to get them in writing. So we'll have at least 30 shared underground parking places, evenings and weekends. They will and this is at Fraser's cost, everything I am listing right now. We don't have to pay for any of this, they are paying for it. Reconfigure Ponca to maximize available parking places, as well as reserve those parking spots for Mountain View evenings and weekends. The underground parking structure will have some method of letting people exit in our direction to make easy access between the things. And there will be shared outdoor spaces to be determined that Mountain View can use in perpetuity at no cost. Also, they will have, Fraser has gorgeous meeting spaces over there, and we are allowed to use them at no cost forever, including during construction. So that's a question we got, was what happens during construction? If we have to not use our sanctuary for a little while, what do? We're gonna use their big space over there. They've already said that, we can use it at no cost. An easily accessible meeting room, preferably on the ground floor, that Mountain View can use on Sunday mornings at no cost. So that would be like a regular Sunday school class, for instance. Or if there were a Sunday where all the groups came together and we need a little bigger space, we can use their space. All the utilities currently come in on the far south end of the building. Fraser will move and reinstall all of those utilities at their cost. There will be some variety of safe passage from Fraser to Mountain View at Fraser's cost. Tim said this made him think of refugees with all their bags and boxes. And so safe passage is a funny word, but what we mean is just a good way for people to get from there to here without getting hurt. And I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, but that's one of our goals. Maintenance of all outdoor sidewalks, walkways, parking, and lawn in perpetuity. So we don't have to shovel our walks or our parking lot anymore. They will take care of it. And then all earth moving and landscape restoration on the north side of Mountain View Sanctuary will be at their nickel. Because if you've looked at those drawings, there's a detention pond or a retention pond that has to go out there. Well, currently that's way up in the air, so water doesn't really go uphill. So that will all have to come down, and that's their cost. All right, then there are a lot of design details. Rich, could you forward? Thank you. Oh, you can't read these one little tiny bit, I don't think. My apologies. So what this is about is the design committee, which is what's going to be reformed, is going to have sign-off and approval rights for certain of the design elements on the collective property as we go forward. So I told you that they're going to move all the utilities. Well, we get to have a say in where those go. They don't just get to say, okay, we're going to stick them there. So we get say in that one. The retention pond that's going on that end of the building with potential geothermal under it, we get approval on what that looks like. Ponca Place's north section where the parking, we told you that they're going to reconfigure that for parking, we get buy-in and sign off on what that actually ends up looking like. The new south end of Mountain View where the building gets cut off, we get a say in what that wall is going to look like. It doesn't just get to be cinder block painted gray. We get to actually say what that looks like. The scope of any applicable deconstruction or demolition permits, because the south end will be demolished, we want to say in when and how and where that's going to happen. And we have asked for a new surface parking lot on their nickel. So whether we get that or not, I don't know, but we have asked for it. And then, okay, so this is the site plan. And I don't know if you can see this, but there is a black line that starts.
Sorry, for those who are in the back, if you want to see this screen,
All right, I need to be at the microphone. I'm sorry. So you can see the building that goes across the bottom of the drawing, right? And it sticks up toward us. So there's a black line that goes right across that, and then it kind of goes diagonal by the parking lot, and then shoots across. And the shoot across part is 10 feet south of the cutoff point of the building. So that's 10 feet south. Then that goes across to the other side of the building, then it shoots up the Ponca side, then comes across to the middle, and up to, what is that, Sioux Drive? No, that's... What is that street up there? I can't remember. Pawnee. Okay, so it goes back up to Pawnee. So it's a funny property line. But again, we are maximizing the amount of land that we sell in order to maximize the dollars we are getting. All the green space that is technically on their space, we can use. And that's a critical point to know. We may not own it, but we can use it. Oh, is that going to be your pointer? Yeah. And then across and back up. Because they are purchasing the land where the retention pond will be, They can't build on it, they can't do anything with it, but they are buying it, so they give us more money. All right? Thank you. Well, we can try it. Oh, Tim, you might need to help with this one.
All right, for those in the front, this is the line. It goes down, across here, up, then there, and up like that. Okay, where is our church? Oh, that's right
Yeah,
here.
that's us.
That's us.
Fair question, I forgot about that detail.
Yeah, that's right. Anything else you'd like me to point out while I'm equipped?
Oh, that was good. Sorry? It's the little chunk, it's that bit right there. So it would go off of the narthex, kinda.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, I'm sorry. His question was, where is the addition? Thank you, Stephen, that's so helpful. Oh, wait, it went away.
Put it back.
Okay, do you see the like yellow circle on there? That's the addition part.
So the addition size is not gigantic by any
No, it's under 1,000 square feet. There's some discussion, we can make it a little bigger, we can make it a little taller. There are options. That's what I say, these are just concept drawings, we haven't gotten to the final form yet.
Right, we've got to understand the magnitude.
Magnitude is that the addition is not ginormous.
That line represents what?
The property line,
That defines the boundaries of the space that we would sell.
yes. Well, basically, we keep the inner part of that, we sell the outer part of that. Yeah, yes ma'am. I don't actually know, but on an average Sunday morning, we use 75 parking spots. Yeah. Mark?
Used the word, two different words. We have a say in it, and then what she said, we can have to sign off on. And those are very different. So there's something where it's sign off on, it says veto power.
Yeah.
Say it, we can influence, but I don't know how.
That long list. Yes, I'm sorry. Mark was questioning my verbiage on influence or say in versus sign off on. And that one page of little bitty letters, that's all sign off rights. That's all, we actually can control that. Yes, ma'am?
Is there like a microphone, like a
Yes.
that somebody could be passing around?
Well, we'd rather that you come up here and talk so everyone can see you when you're asking the question. And we will get to a question time, but yes.
Do you have any idea from the city that let you know whether they're gonna allow the vacating and no idea?
What an awesome question. So I will tell you that they have gone to the city when they did this. Oh, I'm so sorry. The question is, when would we know whether Ponca can be vacated? And the answer is we don't know. But they went to the city and said, what do you think of vacating? They said, why would we want to do that? And so they showed them basically this drawing and where the building goes across, and they said, oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that seems like a thing we are likely to do. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just wonder, Sharon,
Come to the microphone, please.
it's not a big question, but I just wonder, you say we have, we can still use all these things. My question is, who has priority? If we want to use it and they want to use it at the same time,
On
who
Sunday
has
mornings,
priority?
we win.
Okay.
Fair question. Oh, no, I'm not finished. To be determined. The question was, where would we do an outdoor service? And we are keenly aware of the need for that, but we haven't quite figured it out yet. Okay, there will be a long time for questions and comments later, and I am committed to answering every last one of them, but when the time comes, I'm gonna ask you to come up here and ask the questions so everyone can hear them. Okay, so what's next? There will be a single item charge conference, that is the technical name of it, next Sunday, October 13th. The motion will be, do you approve selling a portion of Mountain View United Methodist Church's property to Fraser as presented? So the board, the building committee, we are negotiating the contract. You get to vote on, is it okay that we sell part of the land to Fraser? Church members must be present either in the sanctuary or via Zoom. The Zoom vote will be via a poll, so it's anonymous. In-person vote will be pencil and paper, again, anonymous. And you just say yes or no. The District Committee on Building and Location has given tentative approval, subject to congregational approval. Okay? This is the timeline. This is exactly what I showed at the last town hall a couple of months ago. And basically, you can see the red star, and that's that we're technically sort of in the middle of that step 3 of negotiating the contract. If the vote next week is negative, we are finished. If it is in the affirmative, then we move to the next one, which is step 4, which is design and construction. So this is the very long timeline, and I know you can't really see this, but you see the vertical line, which can move forward 2 little ticks to October. And then the big numbers across the top are the years. So we are in 2024, and then into 25, and into 26. Construction doesn't start. If this goes forward, construction won't start until 2026. So we have a couple of years before any of this is really real. So like your board, for instance, is going to have a visioning and planning retreat next week. And it sort of doesn't matter what the vote does. The church goes on. Ministry continues. People continue in worship as a community. And there will be no visible changes for a couple of years. Okay? Thank you for drawing pictures. Okay, so Mountain View is, and again, these are just phrases that I have heard and I like them, so I put them in these presentations. A place where we love each other, and you are welcome into that love. And net zero, 100% love. So that's sort of the end of the formal presentation. And I want to take a moment to say that I've heard accusations that or people have said that I am not neutral in presenting this information. And you are correct, because I genuinely think this is the way forward for Mountain View. I recognize that not everyone agrees with that, but as a member of this church since I was this big, having baptized my baby in this sanctuary on Christmas Eve with Skip Strickland, this is a place that I love, and these are people that I love. And honestly, I think this is our way forward. So, there are a couple of other board members who would like to speak at this moment.
Hello, is this on? Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Bill Good, your lay leader for this year, and just wanted to take a minute to talk to you. One of the very important things I wanted to share is obviously the board has been doing a lot of thinking about this. The board's been doing a lot of praying about this, and we are waiting for the final documents to be formally signed off by Fraser and sent over by the lawyers so that we can look at the final version prior to reading all that in detail and coming to you with a formal recommendation. So we are not at the stage. Next week, absolutely, we will be at the stage of presenting a recommendation, which is either to vote for or we recommend the verbiage that we'll be voting on next week as a motion for the charge conference. But we're not at that stage yet because we haven't seen the final details. The details are what we presented here. That's what we've sent to them, and we're expecting to see that result next week. I have been here for 22 years, so quite a long time. My daughters have been raised in this church, baptized and raised with all of you as their family. So I find this very important, thinking about what we have right now as a ministry and what we are doing going forward. I think that we have a responsibility as members, current members, to continue the ministry that this church has been doing for many, many years now and into the future. And we've identified that we definitely have some major costs associated with the building in the near term, in the next 10 to 15 years. And we need to figure out how to appropriately assess those and address those so that the ministry of the church can continue. I don't feel good about reducing our ministry in the way it's currently being done in order to put away money to fund these future costs of the building. I would like to invest in the people and in the ministry of the church. And this is a great opportunity, in my mind, for us to address those future costs, right-size our church to our current size, as well as enable us to grow significantly and still within this current footprint meet our ministry needs and still address why we're all coming here, which is to do the ministry of Jesus Christ and to serve our community and to be one with each other in that ministry. So that is the message that I wanted to share. I want you all, though, to be prayerful and consider this, and everybody's vote is equal next week. So definitely, share your thoughts, share your feelings with each other throughout the week, and let's come together as a church to decide what's best for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Ken Bettenhausen. I promise we're the only two extra members of the board that are going to talk. To just give it a little perspective. I've not been a member as long as Sarah. We came in '91 when my kids were 6, 5, and 2. We luxuriated in this space. There was a classroom for every grade level, even though there were only 8 or so kids per grade level. We walked down the halls with these confirmation classes of 40 or 50 every year, and we knew that we were smaller than we were then. We luxuriated in that space. My wife and I would talk after church, and we'd have to hunt down our kids in the far reaches of the building. It took an extra 10 minutes to find them. We were at the top of the balcony. There's all these things and memories and parts. And yes, it's sort of losing some of that, but we knew at the time our physical plant was already bigger than our needs. And when I came in to the board about 3 years ago, this has been, I can tell you, a consuming theme throughout those 3 years. We've had pushback within the board. We've responded in all good faith to what we heard from you. And as I see what we've presented to you, I really feel good about it meeting our current needs and giving us the strength to move forward with space that's up to code, so it's safe. We aren't grandfathering in unsafe space. What a big surprise. Nobody wants those classrooms because nobody's come in as a tenant unless it's up to current snuff, and we aren't. So the reality is we have an old infrastructure. This will allow us to create a current contemporary infrastructure that's good for the next 20 years. And the reality is that plan will allow us to double the size. We can grow as a congregation. We can host major events in this sanctuary, and we'll have flexible space downstairs that brings things out of closets, takes things into closet storage, and so we'll have a nice, usable space. And if anybody's been to hotels, those partitions are soundproof. They're much better than the old wheel carts that I grew up with when I was in a country church and met in a Sunday school class next door to each other. So I'm really excited about about the opportunity we have to position Mountain View for the next 20, 40, 60 years. And this is a chance to do that. So I hope you look at what we become as opposed to what we're losing. Thank you.
All right. Oh, yes. So sorry.
I'll be quick, but I wanted to take a second because I've had people tell me, oh, I heard you said this, or you feel this, or you. So I decided I'd tell you for myself. When I was sent to this church, I didn't want to come here. I've told you all that before. Mainly I didn't want to come here because I was told you were very conservative about social issues, and that my job was to save you all from becoming a church that might disaffiliate. There was great fear in the conference that that would be the case. The conference was very wrong about that. We all know that. We became a reconciling congregation at a 97% positive vote. That was amazing. And I started thinking, well, okay, that's okay. Then I can continue on. I don't have to go back in the ally closet. We can be a loving congregation. And so my objection had gone away. But every day I would walk across and come to this building. Every day I would see what's happening here. And I got excited. Not by the building, because I was seeing it with new eyes, the new eyes that you talk about, but by the people and the things that they wanted to do. And that was exciting to me. But I also am pretty good at looking at things like finances. And I thought, there's no way. We can't keep going. I don't know if you all know this or not, but for 1 year of my career in ministry, I worked with Skip Strickland. He was my boss. I was more bossy, but he was the boss. And my sole job when I worked for him in the conference was to close churches. That's what I did. To go in and analyze them and help them understand if they could or couldn't make it and what it would take for them to be a thriving, vital church. Some of you are aware of Bethel in Boulder. That was me. Don't throw things. But they couldn't continue the way they were going. And so with that training and that background, and then coming here and finding all of you people who wanted to do such amazing things for ministry, I started to look at it and wonder. And so that's when I said, let's find some things out. And people kept saying, well, don't worry, we could always talk to Fraser. And that's been being said here for a long time. Skip tells me that when he was the pastor, people said, we could always talk to Fraser. Could we? I don't know, but of course we could. And then I started wondering, and that's where we put together all these things to get information, because one thing I also learned about this congregation is you are people who want the facts. You want to know and you want to understand. And so we started doing that, and Sarah walked you through all of that, so I won't. But I've been always wondering, how do we become the church that moves forward into the future? Just like people who plant trees that they'll never get to sit under the shade for, that idea. How do we become that? Because there are a lot of churches around here that aren't going to make it. Not just our immediate neighbors, but throughout. Do you know we have children in this church? I know they're loud, but aren't they fun to have? We have youth in this church. A couple of weeks ago, I went to lunch with the youth, and there were 12 of them. That's a church that's got something happening. That's important. A lot of churches don't have that. And for me, do I support this? Of course I do. I haven't been secretive about that. But the why is not any of the things I've heard people say. It's because I believe that Mountain View Boulder has that chance to be a church in Boulder, Colorado, which is hard. Not now, not in 5 years, but in 10 or 20 or 30, because of all of you. And how do we keep that going? I wish ministry was free, but you all know it's not. How do we make this place be the future for, as Bill likes to keep reminding us, for Jesus Christ? How do we do that? And to me, this is the way we can. So and I'm happy. If any of you want to ever ask me why I think, please come and see me, because it's about the future of this place. I think you're ready for questions and comments.
So the point of clarification there is that this is preparing us for the future. We are not ending. We are not stopping. We are moving into the future. And we think this is the way forward. Okay.
Wow. This is exciting. That plan that you put up showed the property lines, the new church footprint. I see welcoming, affirming, celebrating written all over that. And that's the welcoming statement that we adopted when we became a reconciling congregation. And I see that written all over that new plan. That's a place for us to thrive, to celebrate each other, serve the world around us. Are there some uncertainties? On details, yes, but there are protections written in that I heard that the board has negotiated with Fraser. And whatever those uncertainties are, they're minor details and they can be negotiated, and I think there's a good faith there that there will be resolution. But the big picture is, this is exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't pay him. Whoever wants to talk, just come on up. You can make a little line, that's fine.
Thank you for all the hard work. I have two small questions.
Yep.
One is, what percentage does it pass? What percentage of vote does it take to pass?
Technically 51.
Okay. And
51%, or 50 plus 1, or, you know, whatever you call it.
okay.
Yeah.
And since Fraser, we're getting $300,000 so that they get right of first refusal if we choose to sell any other land. What about the opposite of that? If Fraser decides to sell any of the land that we've just sold, that we may sell them, can we get right of first refusal on that?
Never
Because it
occurred
seems
to
like
me to ask.
It's certainly a possibility that they might go, you know, this isn't working out, and they choose to sell it. I mean, it's a possibility. Anyway, just a thought.
Would you clarify something?
Sure.
You said 51% of those present?
Yes, ma'am. 51% of those present, and that does include Zoom.
Good morning. I'm Joe Shostrom. I'm a newcomer here, so we've not met many of us, but not all of us. I once belonged to an organization where at a point in time when we were on the verge of making some important decisions about a lot of things. And at that point in time, a group of people who also had some interest appeared and joined the club, and were able to take over the meeting where these decisions were going to be made. And I'm wondering, what is the entity that makes the final decision on these things? And is that a stable group of people? Is there anybody that has a motive, considering how much money is involved? Is there anybody that has a motive for wanting to take over us and having the capability of taking over us at the last minute? I mean, how stable is the group of people that makes this decision? And let me pose one other question. One of the reasons I got interested in Mountain View Church in the first place was all the things going on here. The student orchestra at what's the college in Minnesota? St. Olaf College, and the Mahler Festival that brought helped. I volunteered at that and helped set up this room to accommodate an orchestra of 100 people for a rehearsal. And so I wonder, is the plan that you have in mind going to allow for as much as, or even perhaps even more of that sort of thing, or are some of any of those things potentially compromised by the plan?
That was a lot of questions.
It was.
So,
I thought maybe it was only two. But no.
So in terms of rentals, we believe we can accommodate everyone who comes in here now, including Mahlerfest, including the student orchestra, including all of that. We believe we can accommodate all of that in the new footprint. We certainly have thought about that and considered it. So the final decision-making entity actually is you. The board, me as the chair, I sign the contract, but if you, the congregation, do not approve it, I cannot sign it. So as to the stability of the congregation, you can look around and decide for yourself. I don't really know how to answer that. But no one is trying to take over the church that I'm aware. Oh, yeah, I don't. Oh, okay.
Lynn's asking who can vote, and to answer your question about, I won't speak for the stability of any of the people before me, but that's who votes, is the congregation, and Lynn asked who that is. You have to be a member of this church, and you have to be present either here or by Zoom to vote. So that's who gets to vote. And so if you haven't joined the church, if you have a question about if you're a member, someone asked me if their child could vote, and I said, yeah, I know your child. They're here, they've been on trips, they come to church when they're in town, yes.
My kids, not so much.
If your kid hasn't been in the building in 20 years, this is the person who asked me, they haven't been here for 20 years, they haven't donated, they haven't even been here for Christmas, guess what? They're probably not a member of the church anymore. I mean, there is some level of commitment to being here. But the other people who get to have something to do with all this, if you all vote yes, the board, and you've heard from a couple of them, we have a board of 9 members, and they will be the ones that fine-tune the whereases and with the thousands of words that we've seen. So that the board will read that, and there are 9 people on the board. 3 of them rotate off every year, and so that's how that system works. But they can't do anything without the congregation members voting. But that has happened at churches where a whole group of people came in and tried to take it over, particularly on the plains, but that's not what's happening here. Definitely not. So thanks for that. How will members vote?
There will be pieces of paper and pens or pencils, and you will write the word yes or no. And you will, no, it's anonymous. We will not know who voted how. On
the Zoom, there's a poll function. I don't know how it works exactly, but I'll know by then. You click a button to vote yes or no. It might only be able to vote yes. But I will look at the Zoom. I have to figure, you may either vote yes or not vote, or I don't know if it's a poll, it should have a yes. I just haven't played with it yet, sorry. There'll be a yes or no. But I will look at who's in the Zoom, because here's my fear. Those people over at St. Paul's, I don't want them coming into our Zoom and voting, because they don't have a vote. So I'll see who's in the Zoom, but I won't see who's voting what way in the Zoom. So yes, your vote will be anonymous. Is that what you want to know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Yes.
Yes.
Carolyn asked if the 51% is those voting. So yes, present by here or Zoom voting. So it's not by members, just however many people come that day. And there's no quorum. The quorum is whoever shows up.
Mary Beth?
Thank you for all of this work. I understand, and we're grateful that you've wrestled with this and have tried to do this transparently. What I just want to say is I want to remind people that we will do this discussion again next week. This is
not the whole discussion.
That we need to stay here until we have spoken much of it, because I feel like new information was given to me today that I need to process, and I want to highlight one of them. I thought the vote was for sale or not sale. what I'm hearing
Yes.
from the question and answer is that we're also talking about what will happen to that money. Because in the question and answer, in the things it was, principal will be protected for future building and interest will be used for ministry. And what I'm hearing now is that the money will be used for a ministry, and that changes how I feel about it. That's what I'm thinking I heard. What I need to clarify for my vote next week will be that the principle, when we make, and there won't be much money left, because I disagree that we will not lose Mahlerfest, we're losing the parking lot. Anyway, and what I feel, for something that makes me feel better about this, is if we make money, then it is protected money. It is not for us to use because we're not tithing. Because I feel like part of what we're dealing with now is the fact that we have not been engaged in the financial support of this church. So what I just want to clarify that the money that we make, that will be, the principal will be protected, like we said, permanent endowment, and that only the interest will be used for ministry.
So of the 8 million that we will be getting, if this goes
Right.
through, the 8 million we would get, some portion of it would be used to rebuild the building.
4 to 6.
Yes. Mm-hmm. What is left, we intend to put into a restricted fund, which per discipline can only actually be used for capital expenses and only with, I think, district approval. Mm-hmm. And the interest will be used for ministry. We are not going to spend down the 2 million for ministry. That is intended to stay
And
protected.
from what I understand from the Q&A document, was that what we're talking about, if we have 2 million left, we're talking about 50,000 for ministry. If we have 4 million left, we have 100,000 for ministry. And we're also losing, and I truly believe this, the rental income. There's no parking lot, there's no Suzuki Strings, there's no Mahlerfest, there's no concerts, because people rent us because we have parking.
Okay.
Friday, I was in the building when Suzuki Strings was here, and I talked to Amy, don't know her last name.
Gesmer Packman.
What?
Gesmer Packman.
Yeah, her. And she was very worried about the whole thing. And so she and I went and we looked at the pictures. And first she thought in January they had to be done. You know.
Yeah.
And we looked at it and talked about it and all of that. And she said, so we don't have to move. I said, absolutely not. Talked about how we value our relationship with them and how they, we want to make it work and that they'll be a part of our conversation all along. So I can tell you at least that Suzuki Strings is excited that they can stay here. Talked about the parking with her, all of that, so we're good. Just so you know, that's what Amy said. She's the person that's in charge of it. So, and then I've also talked to the chair of the board for Greater Boulder Youth Orchestra, and she is also excited to hear about all of it and is glad to hear I've explained, showed the pictures, talked to them, and they're good. Brian has talked to some of those other bigger out in the community groups about what's going on here and what they feel about being here. Do you want him to tell you what those groups have said?
Sure. I think that's part of today is gathering information. So I don't actually know the answer to some of these things.
It's really interesting, I think, the way that information, once disseminated, is perceived or internalized. For example, one of the groups that Stephanie was just mentioning, a month ago, I sent a very long, detailed email to a person, and all of the questions were answered. And yet still there's sometimes some angst to that. It's like, well, one person said, but can I get it from the president of the board or from the pastor themselves? So what I'd like to mention to you is that we have some feedback going on. Sorry about that. What I'd like to mention is that in my 5 years of being here at Mountain View, we've brought in a lot of groups I've brought in, I've been able to procure Boulder Phil to come in and do some of their rehearsals here. Colorado Music Festival does some of their rehearsals here during the summer. Longtime tenants like Greater Boulder Youth Orchestra and Suzuki Strings of Boulder, they are here and they know that they are welcome. And when I talk to people who are responsible for these groups, it's important to me to let them know what is going to, as we know it now, what is going to be available to them. And there is not a single group that we work with now that comes into our space that uses these spaces for whom we will not be able to provide the same service. Because the parking issue always seems to come up first, and we've, I think the plan has like 20, 25 spaces. We've got 30 more spaces underneath that we can use at different times during the week. Plus there's all parking all along here, and we're not going to lose, from my perspective, we're not going to lose tenants, renters who provide us income and cash because of parking. And looking at some of the designs that have been thrown around for downstairs, making sure that there's room to do all the things that we do, with these partitions being able to open and make flexible the space for people to use the space and to feel safe and to have privacy and to have soundproof so that we can have multiple organizations in here. So I just am speaking to you as a staff member, and now I'm going to take off my name tag and speak to you as a human being and a member of this church, that I think that what we are looking at, even though these are tentative ideas, but they've been sort of fleshed out a little bit, and it's important for us to realize that. The idea is that we will have a space. We will have this beautiful sanctuary. We will have all the downstairs. We will have so much of all this stuff that's happening all the way through to the way the offices are, plus looking at a small addition, so maybe we can bring the offices upstairs and be welcoming to people, so that when people will come into the building, they are met by a human being as opposed to this chasm or great cavernous space here in the narthex. So I, as a human being and a member of this church, I'm now telling you that I support moving forward with this, because we need to be able to take care of these problems that are going to come up in our infrastructure in the next couple of years. We don't know when the boiler is going out or all the other things, and that doesn't even include the elevator and whatever else it was. So we've got things happening, and I just feel that the plans as they stand, or could stand, you know, because we can make changes to things, will meet our needs into the future, and every group that wants to use this space.
Go ahead. Just line yourselves up. I am not going to patrol who's talking when. Okay.
Hi, I'm Amy Wright. I've been a member for 24 years. I've seen a lot of changes in this church. When I joined, we had 2 main ministers. We had a youth minister. We were thriving. We filled this up. We have gone down from 3 services down to 2 services. We've now gone down from 2 services to 1 service. In my opinion, we have not addressed the root cause of why we are losing congregation. We can sell this church at any point. We can sell it in 1 year, we can sell it in 2 years, we can sell it in 5 years. To me, I have not heard anything in this proposal. It's an amazing proposal. You've done a great amount of time. You put all this energy into selling the church. Why don't we put the energy in, how do we go back to 3 services? How do we have a youth minister? How do we go back to 2 people? We are going to sell this church, but we haven't fixed the problem. We're still not going to grow. We say we're going to grow because we have a pretty building. I don't think a pretty building is our solution to growing our ministry. To me, ministry means more than just a pretty building. It is the people of the church. It is the programs. If we want to grow this, we need maybe different programs that address all of our needs, not just certain interests. So I think we have time. I think we don't have to sell right now. I think we should put our effort and our energy into really fixing the root cause, which is our congregation. grow our congregation, get us more people, ask some of these businesses for money, get some support from all of these buildings that want to rent from us. Because we can always sell at a later point. And so, to Stephanie's point, yeah, people say we can always approach Fraser. When we sell this, we can't approach them anymore. So we sell, we have nothing more. So, you know, as James said, I think it's the farmer, you can shave the sheep many times, but you can only shear it once. So that's my opinion.
Go ahead. I can go back to the back one. So I'll ask the first one, which is easy. What constructs in the contract exist to handle conflicts? A lot of the plan relies on us borrowing space, both parking, well, I guess they would be designated for us, but having these shared space and borrowing space in Fraser and using the outdoor space that is on their property line.
Yeah.
What parts to the contract protect us when, let's just say, new management comes in, right, that may conflict with new pastoral management, and so we have conflict, and there becomes, you can no longer, and we're now shrunk to just our building with very clear, do not step foot on our property.
It is written into the contract that we will have it in 10-year increments, but eternally renewed. And we are the only ones who can stop that, actually.
Okay. Is there stuff in there for conflict resolution when there are disagreements on maybe the way the space was used, or should there be? Maybe that's the question.
It's a good question.
Okay.
I don't have a good answer.
Just
to that.
making sure, because then it goes, there go well suas, right? And that becomes very costly for this congregation. I'll go to the back line.
You can ask good. You keep going.
I was going to say the parking situation. All right, I'll keep going. The parking situation, we could also reach out to the school for those open spots.
Absolutely.
What was the second question? All right, now I've completely forgotten, so I will go to the back.
All right, deal.
Well, just to tag on to that question that he asked, in the partnerships I've been involved in business, there's an operating agreement that is established between two parties, and that's a legal document that takes care of
We've got one
who
of those.
does what and all that kind of thing. So I'm assuming that would be in there.
Yeah.
I just have a couple clarifying questions. So my recollection is that this building and the property were appraised at around $9 million. And so now we have to take out of that, right, our portion, which sounds to be about $1.5 million, right? So then that leaves us down to about $8 million. But then my question is, when you said that you have gotten some initial bids for the refurbishment as well as the addition for $4 to $6 million.
Yeah.
Is that just for information's sake, but that all of that detail will be flushed out after the sale occurs? So as to how much construction takes place, obviously there's a portion of that that is required to reestablish a heating system and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea of what that number is at this time? What the remodel costs of the building that is left existing is?
Sorry, that's the $4 to $6 million. Is refurb, like basically gutting the offices and the upstairs.
Oh, so that's not adding an addition?
That is also adding.
That's what I'm saying. So what is the difference there?
It's not much. It's like $750,000 for the addition.
Oh, okay. So
Is
that's
that
all.
what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what I'm
it's like
asking.
$750,000 for the addition. But again, we haven't finalized the plan, so
That's
we
what I'm
don't really
asking.
know what the
What
final
that will
costs
be.
will be.
Yeah.
And these are pretty high level.
But the goal is to try to put about $2 million in an account,
And
right?
more would be better, yes.
Yeah, so will those decisions be made by the new committee?
Yes.
Or those will be made?
Yes.
They won't come before the?
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
Fred?
So I have two questions. Part is you're going to sell the area for the retention pond.
Correct.
do we reserve the right to put the geothermal wells
That is
under
in
them?
the contract,
That will be in the contract?
yes.
Okay. And then the next thing is on the parking. How many parking spots? You know, we have 24 people over 90 years of age here. We have a number of us who are finding it more and more difficult to move around. And so there's only 25 parking spots which are adjacent to the entrance here.
What we're talking about is building a porte cochere kind of deal, where you can drive up and drop people off.
Okay.
So that even if you can't fit in the parking lot at that moment, you can drive the person who needs to be close and then go park.
So what's the total number of parking spots that would be available any time of day for us?
We don't know what this parking lot will end up as. 20 to 25 is the number I have, that we are working from, plus street parking.
Okay, and if Ponca is closed and all right, are they going to use diagonal parking? How many spots
We are
would be
going to
there?
do what we can to maximize it. We haven't gotten to that level of detail yet, but we do have design approval rights for that process.
Okay. And on the retention pond, you probably don't have details for that, but could we also have a patio out in that area as well?
My understanding is that we can put non-permanent stuff on it. So like if it were a paver,
Permeable paved.
yeah, I don't want to get caught telling you something that is not
Okay.
100% true, but my understanding is that we can have, like they had talked about putting an amphitheater kind of dealie in there with seating up the sides of it or something. Yeah, I think so. So there are options. I don't know what the specific limitations are, so I don't want to promise you what we can and can't do. But
Okay.
there are options.
Okay, because we need to have maybe 75 or more parking spots available, I would guess. And with only 25 here, if you park along the street, you maybe get another.
Well, plus more on the street, plus underground.
Yeah, but the underground is only available after hours.
And on Sundays and weekends. Sorry? Yeah. 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 For the weekend, yes. From like Friday at 6 until Sunday at 10.
Yeah, but I was here for a funeral that had the whole church filled, even the balcony, and there wouldn't have been enough room for all those cars.
So parking is going to be different than it was before. And we are going to have to get accustomed to different ways of parking. We can work out plans of where to send people and how to shuttle them. We can get a little golf cart and drive people from wherever. I know you don't like that answer. I know you don't like that answer.
Okay.
But I simply don't have another one. It's going to change.
Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have two questions from our Zoom attendees. Welcome to all of you. From Susie Burley, how many stories tall will the new condos be?
4, I think.
4, I think. And number 2, can you divulge the names of the contractors who have submitted tentative bids on our work? Is one of them Fraser's?
Symmetry was one of them. Adolfson something or other, and
Adolf.
Yeah, Adolf Peterson, and I'm blanking on the third one. White's. W-E-I-T-Z. White.
Okay. I hope you got all those, Susie.
So that was 3 bids from 3 different companies.
And so do we know if Fraser's using them? Fraser's not put out for bids yet, so we don't know who they will be using.
Correct.
Second question. Oh, and she also says thank you to all of us.
Thank you.
Second question from Pua in Hawaii. Pua says, aloha. Question about the Zoom vote. If Zoom links are sent only to Mountain View members who request them, will that help to protect the vote?
Huh? Yes, but that would be real hard to do, I think.
I'm happy to send the Zoom link to anyone who needs it, but I think it's restricted that way. I appreciate that.
The idea is appreciated, and Stephanie will send the Zoom link to anyone who asks, but she's not sure we can restrict it. It'll be in the Friday email, so that, yeah, so it'll be in the Friday email. If someone can't get it that way, they should let Stephanie know. Okay.
Thank you. You remembered.
I did remember. And I would actually say to Stephanie, remember you can pump people from the Zoom room, and I would just make sure that everybody who attends the Zoom room puts their legal name into the chat so that Stephanie can, or someone can verify against rolls that you are a member of Mountain View. All right, first question. With construction starting in several years, that means the other half of the building will still be here.
Correct.
Will we still technically own the building until will the contract basically be, we agree to sell the building
In 2 years.
in 2 years? Okay, that was question number one. So we will still get all access to that building and do whatever we want for the next couple years. The second question was, okay, so this one's deeper and it's more for, and I'm still sitting on the fence before anybody thinks that I'm either a naysayer or a yay-sayer. I have a lot of soul seeking to go. I see where everybody's going on why this is a good idea. I also have I would like to not do this, but I don't, and this is where the next question goes, I don't know if there are more naysayers than yay-sayers, I'm sure you all have thought about, okay, we have to do something, right? The budget, if you've ever been on the board and looked at the budget can't take a direct no without a but, right? There has to be something done. When we put together the plan, the alternative plan, it requires $500,000, and that's probably a soft number. There also required a large amount of effort from this community to make it happen, right? It required more than I can give. I've got way too busy a life right now with 3 kids and work. To be able to be here and a wife. Well, yes, we divide and conquer, but yes, I'd like to see her occasionally other than just 15 minutes on the couch before we pass out. So the point to that is that I'm sure you guys will go into battle planning to figure out what's next, but do you guys have a thought of what it would take? And I want everyone to reach down deep and remember, if you vote no, you've got to start ponying up money and time.
Yes.
Because these are the 2 things that are lacking at the church right now, which is why this is an alternative that we are looking at. But do you have any thoughts on what happens if you get a no? Do you guys have, any of you? What would be next to discuss?
I mean, really, a capital campaign is what is next. I don't see that there's another option.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, that means dig deep, pony up, write us in your wills, which you could do anyway. But, yeah.
$4 million, right?
$4 million.
That was the number on the board. Which, I mean, that could be the 500, that could be the childcare, right? Those of you thinking about it. But it's $4 million.
And that
right?
still leaves.
Yes.
But
yes.
that also leaves us with a big old building at that end of.
That we hope only needs $2 million.
Yeah, yes,
so,
exactly.
I mean, maybe it only does. I tend to sit on the, I don't mind old and I don't mind being grandfathered into code. But, but on the, when we do change things, if anything changes, right? The roof caves in and we have to fix something. Now we have to go up to code, right? And so that expense of maybe it was $100,000 to fix the roof. It's $100,000 plus you need all new fire systems on that floor. So now it's $250,000, right? That's the kind of things we're talking about with renovating the building. So, okay.
No, I appreciate that insight because
okay.
he's right. Anything that we change substantially in the building means a lot of other stuff has to come up to code.
Even though we don't want to.
Right, which means it gets real expensive real fast, even if the thing we're doing is not that big. So, yeah, you are correct. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was my two questions.
Yes, sir. You've been waiting very patiently.
So actually, I just want to reiterate the thank yous to the board. This was, I think, a very long process, very complicated series of discussions. I work at CU, and this is the kind of thing I would expect to see from like 10 full-time employees working for a couple of years. And the board are all volunteers, and so I think we need to just recognize an incredible amount of work and due diligence on the part of the board, and probably their spouses and partners would also
not wrong
chime in about that. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
And the other thing I want to say is I hope, I certainly know personally, whatever the vote is, I will continue to provide prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. I may feel one way or other about it, but I'm committed to the church either way. And I hope and pray that everyone else here, feels the same way, that we are a community and that we respect each other's opinions. And and that we want to maintain that community. So that's really just what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, and amen.
I want to say thank you too. I've been buried in 2 kids in 2 different leagues doing biking, and so I've just been like in and out and all over the place, and then life in general. But I guess my question, and then I'll preface it with a concern. I look at Fraser and I look at 40 years from now, 50 years from now, and is that going to be? Are we going to have Frasers? Is that going to be, like, my generation doesn't have the money to,
Right.
like my generation is half the size of the baby boomers, and are we going to be living in Fraser? And so what will happen, like, when we look into the future of our church, like, we're growing and progressing, but if Fraser kind of goes defunct in 30, 40 years, what's that going to do to the church and to everything around us? So I think, I like Nancy's comment and her question about the first right of refusal. So maybe in that contract, like making verbiage, like in the like for the future, like when we're all gone, that people have a right to either buy back the land, they have a right to know like what happens to that facility. And then I think too, when we look at the plans, it kind of feels like we're like Fraser then would just be like encompassing us, and so maybe like when we're to that stage, having it step back a little bit, so we are a church, and so people view us as something separate than Fraser and not just a part of Fraser, so that if and when Fraser becomes something different and evolves into maybe affordable housing or what, which would be awesome too. And I'm not trying to like kick Fraser out, but I just feel like we evolve as societies, and I just feel like I don't know that our future generations will have that as part of their elder care. So
a buyback for right of first refusal, honestly, we hadn't thought about it. I think that's a really interesting idea.
And also,
I don't have my microphone.
One of the very interesting things about this property and that property was started by the Methodist Church. Yes, their bylaws, they just rewrote them in the last year. Their bylaws still require them to have the trust clause in effect. The trust clause that we're bound by and they're bound by says that if they ever stop being Fraser, their property reverts to the conference.
oh, then enough said.
And the other thing I was going to say about feeling like we're surrounded by Fraser, we are very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And I know the property line is in particular wrapped around us, but to an outsider, they don't know where the property lines are. So it will look not as surrounded as the property lines would indicate.
And thank you for that clarification, Stephanie, because I think when we look beyond us here and look, 50 years from now, we want to protect the future.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of a cool piece that. Yeah. Sure. Thanks, Wendy.
Forgive me, I have to leave early. Something to do with my wife's brand new knee.
Okay. Thanks.
Just a clarifying question. Sorry about that. Just a clarifying question. Is there may be a feeling that if I vote no this time because there's some particular part of the agreement that I disagree with, we'll rewrite the agreement and there will be another vote. I want to understand this is the singular vote on the agreement. If it's a no, this will not go up for a vote again for X number of years, or?
I would imagine not for quite some time. I know the perception is we can do this anytime we like, but they are going to expand and they are going to commit their money somewhere. So if it's not us, it will be someone else, and we won't be able to, oh, let's just go ask them next year.
Okay,
I
so
don't
we won't
see
be
that.
going through another negotiation of the contract.
No.
This is it.
If
for
you
the
would like to
foreseeable
head up
future.
another set of negotiations, I welcome you to it.
I am not volunteering for that at this
That's
time.
wise woman.
But I appreciate all that everyone has done.
Thank you.
Just wanted to clarify that.
No, and I appreciate that. That is true. This is not an ongoing back and forth. This is what we are voting on.
It's a one issue.
Yeah.
Just some comments about the energy consumptions of the buildings. The education wing is actually very energy efficient. The windows are double pane and all of that. I've actually gone through and measured the performance of all those components. The major energy losses are in this roof. 50% of the energy costs are just about through that roof.
Sure.
And the other thing about the education wing, it's built in sections. And so every 21 feet is there a major support for the roof, and you can go down and see. And so if those who said they wanted more room and wanted to use that, we're saving 21 feet, which is the old section of the north end of the education wing. There's another pillar 21 feet down, and then 42, and then 63, and 8, so on. So one could save portions of it. We've looked at the drawings for the foundations. I think it could be terminated along. And so, anyway,
Okay.
just a comment.
I appreciate the perspective. Should I respond? I mean,
I think it's important to realize that next Sunday, the vote is for this. Not this plus 20 feet or this plus that. It's not a contract vote, it's a vote on the sale. The board will make sure and the attorney will make sure all those things are happening. I just think people need to know, there's not gonna be A, B, C, D, E choices. It's just a choice.
okay, she threatened me with 225 questions, so sit
I was
back.
teasing her. Hi, everybody, Melissa. I am new here, so I'm aware I don't have 50 years of history. My perception is this: we had a reserves campaign that we needed funded. And what I saw is it fell very short of what we were asking members to contribute. And so my concern is this: if we cannot, as a congregation, come together and financially support what we have now, where in heaven's name are we going to be able to come up with $2 million? And I say that with respect because we're all limited in what we can do. I'm just thinking, because one of my questions was, how long can we continue if we don't do something? And I believe the answer was 6 to 10 years, possibly, before we basically fold. I don't know that for a fact because my memory is not perfect.
And I probably hedged on an answer because I didn't have a good answer.
Well,
So that is just a perception that I'm seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Has everyone said their piece who would like to say their piece or ask a question or make a comment? Stephen is back. Stephen is back. I've missed you so.
My parents say this about me. I have 1,000 questions. So, document vote goes, maybe let's call it yes.
Yes.
There is contingencies though, right? So everybody doesn't think that we can all go home and rest when $8 million is headed our way. There is a very large possibility, or there's a medium, maybe even small, we'll call it small, that Boulder says no.
Correct.
There's also, is there other possibilities where, let's say a year from now, I mean, is that the only way that Fraser can say and back out in their contract, right? Is if Boulder says no to Ponca Place, then they're out, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's the main part of the question.
I mean, they could just, for whatever reason, say, no, we're bailing, which...
Well, they would say it pretty immediately though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it would be, where I was going was, if construction's not starting for 2 years, 2 years come in and, I don't know, a hurricane hits Colorado and they're like, we can't do this anymore, you can have your space back, but we'd like our money.
We will be reimbursed any costs we have put into it at that point.
Okay, okay, but they could cancel the contract later? There's penalties. Okay, like any contract, if anybody knows, you try to sell a company, there's usually like this wonderful, beautiful, we're gonna buy your company for $120 billion, but if we decide not to, we owe you $20 billion, which my company had to pay out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm talking billions and this is millions, so change the numbers. But okay, that was my only question.
Okay.
Thanks for the hard work.
You sure you have any more?
No, I probably have more, but I'll just email you.
Okay, deal. Buddy?
I just wanted to offer a request for prayers. So you noticed in the plan that if we get a yes vote, there would be a new building committee, and we would need to find someone in this room maybe, or certainly within our congregation somewhere, who would take on the job of managing this project. That's a big job. That's a really big job. And I would ask that you pray for not only our vote next week, but if our vote is yes, if you would continue praying for who those new people would be, that someone would feel that tap on the shoulder to step forward to offer to manage this project for us.
That's okay.
One of the things that someone has shared with me that has not been brought up is that we also have, if we need money, we can always borrow money, and also we have a parsonage that we could sell to do a finance capital campaign. That's just another asset. And I had another idea, but I forgot it.
Okay. Stephen. Thank you.
So I was on the board, and I am now the building, whatever am I have no idea. Really just helping Kyle. And I was on the last trustees board before we became the one board, and we explored the parsonage. Now, everyone's gonna think that parsonage is probably worth $1 million. The house next door sold for 1.2. And it was bought by the congregation for a ridiculously large, small sum of like $200,000 a very long time ago. We owe a little bit of money on things that we've done for it, but we don't owe any money on it in reality. The issue with selling the parsonage is it becomes exactly like selling the church. It has to go into a fund that can only be used for physical plant items, and of which the interest can be pulled off. In addition, when the parsonage is sold, we owe the pastor what is it called? A housing allowance, which is what we're using the rent from, which we're allowed to. The rent from the current parsonage is paying that housing allowance plus
some of it going back into our regular budget. So while it sounds like a great idea, I like keeping that property, renting it out when we don't have a pastor, because if you get a pastor that, say, has a young family, there's no way they're going to live in Boulder, period, right? They're going to live, if they're lucky, they're going to live in Erie. More likely, my coworkers, I work in engineering, are buying all the way out in Berthoud and beyond because housing prices have moved them all the way out that way. So just as a thought, it's a lovely thought, but I think keeping the parsonage so that we can pay the housing allowance or offer it as a, hey, you can walk to work, is a much better proposition.
So theoretically, yes, it is possible, but no, that's great. No, that's great. Yes, ma'am.
It was wonderful to hear all the incredible
Welcome
work.
back. I
And,
haven't
yeah,
seen you in
I know.
ages. All right.
So this has been on my mind. So I think part of the pain for the community is we are a community. I mean, I still can walk in and recognize half of the faces, you know. So my question is, has there been any discussion with Fraser that when this is built, that people that are longtime members here can somehow designate differently if they choose to go to Fraser Meadow as seniors? Because wouldn't that be amazing to be able to live there and still have this be our church home?
I can tell you the wait list is 620 individuals at Fraser. That is what is reported to the board when we have our meetings. You can go on the list, but you don't get to jump over anybody just because you're a member of Mountain.
Right, you don't get to jump over, but my question is there going to be any priority for the apartments that are on?
That's what we just said. There's no priority. You
Yeah.
can go on the list.
It would be lovely, but no.
Okay, and it's too late to put that in negotiation discussions.
Yeah.
I think there might be some constitutional issues with that, you know, so yeah, no, that's not.
It'd be fun though. We could just have a party over there. Like, yeah. All right. Anything else? I am happy to entertain any other questions. I am committed to stay here, although Tim would like to shoot me for offering that. But all right. You only thought you were
the end. Judy and I came back from a trip to the Normandy beaches celebrating the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And I see this as a D-Day for us. We need to make it a decision next week if we want to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. See you in an hour for square dancing. Oh, 2 hours for square dancing, 1 hour for fun music. Thank you all.